So for Lab 8, we have to display the question, the answers, and the list of levels. However, I'm going to do this screencast not by using the actual template that I gave you for assignment 2, assuming you didn't create your own, but I'm going to use a modified email template that basically allows me to give you the answer without giving the answer. So make sure when you hand in your stuff, like for your lab and assignments, that you hand in your own recreation, own HTML CSS template of the game screen, or if you haven't, then you can use the one I gave you for assignment 2. All right, first step, include the script for Vue.js. Now, make sure you include that script not at the top where I think I did during class. Don't put it within the head there, but make sure you put in the bottom. Otherwise, you might get an error message that says, I can't find your hashtag app ID. The next thing, we're going to add our own index.js, or in this case, app.js. And inside my app.js, I've given you already some default levels and questions, just so that you have something to work with before you fetch your data. All right, so let's try this out. So new view. And the first thing is the EL property. So this will look at the ID of the tag that you want to target. So since I want Vue to access pretty much everything on the page, right? I want to handle click events, I want to display different levels, etc. Then the tag I want to really target is this section right here, which is layout. So that way Vue has access to all of that. And then the next one will be the data attribute. Now, I'm just following this little code here just to make sure it works on my page. So I'll just use their example of hello world. So let's just try to display that just to make sure it works. So let's display the hello world in here using Vue's mustache template handlebars. They call it declarative rendering. All right, so let's refresh. See if it hello world. Yep, hello world does display. Great. Before I move on, I forgot to mention in class, when you installed your Chrome extension for Vue.js DevTools, click on the Details button and allow access to file URLs. So make sure this toggle is on. That will allow you, watch this. So this is now enabled, meaning it detects that Vue.js is being used. And if you go to your DevTools, a new Vue tab appears, which you can then click on the root, and you'll see all the different variables that you can use, as well as you can edit that on the fly, and it'll change. Also, you'll notice, you may notice, depending on how you set up your linting, is Visual Studio Code is complaining with the red squiggly lines that this is not good. That's because it wants you to assign it to a variable called app. Now by doing that, back in the DevTools, if you go to your console now, you now have access to app, which contains everything Vue is. You could also say app message, which is everything, the value that it currently has. Or you can change it, and it changes accordingly. Just wanted to mention that quickly. Okay, first step, I want to display the first question. So let's go in here. Now, I did mention in class that you could do a quick and dirty method for this lab and display it however you want to. So you may think, you can say something like this, questions 0.question. That would display the first question, no problem. But it's not very scalable. So I'm going to try a different way, just so that it'll be scalable for future questions. So instead of message here, what I really want to do is maybe call a function that we'll define in a second. And the purpose of this function is it'll always give us the current object. So let's pretend that we have the current object. So let's pretend it's this one. So if it gives us this one, let's pretend current queue gives us this one. That means to access the question, I have to say dot question, right? And so this will always give us the question of their current object. So now we need to create a current queue function. How do we do that? We need a methods. So within the methods sections, you can say whatever function you want, and this is where you can return our current. Okay, now this is where, hold on. Let's back up here. First of all, we need let's create a variable called questions within our data so that we can access questions in here by saying this.questions. And then we'll make this equal to this array, which is also called questions. So I could say questions equals questions. So this questions refers to this one. This questions will refer to anything in our view. So now in ES6, if both sides are the same name, you can collapse it into one. Same thing. All right, so current queue, and that will return our current object. So that's this questions will give us this array. And now we need, because it's an array, we need some kind of variable here, right? Some kind of index. And we want this index to change depending on what question we're on. So maybe we should put another variable here called index, and we'll set it to 0 initially so that we can now access this .index, which will be 0. So I think we've done it. Current queue will always give us the current question object depending on the index. So let's see what the page looks like. Refresh. We still get the same question. So far so good. Let's go to our DevTools, View DevTools, go to the root, and then you'll see index is now there. Watch what happens if I click plus. So index is now 1, and the question changes automatically. And that's the beauty of using frameworks like Vue, is that depending on the state of your variables, the view changes automatically, which is great. Okay, that's good. What should we do next? So we could do the same thing for the answers. Let me just check something here. Yeah, let's do the same thing for the answers. So I could say here, actually, let me do a multiple cursor. So in VS Code, if you say Alt, hold down the Alt key, and then click away, you can have multiple cursors. So there we go. I almost want to say, almost want to say something like this. I want to say, give us possible answers 0 and the same thing here. Let's do the multiple cursors again. Paste. We'll just change each one. 2, 3. It's almost I want to say something like that. So how are we going to do that? So here we have to have a possible answers array, which takes in some kind of value, like an index. Okay. Now, it's almost as if I want to say return a shuffled array of my incorrect answers and incorrect answers. So it would be nice if I had an array that contained both the correct answers and the incorrect answers, and it was shuffled. And that way I could just return, that shuffled array IDX kind of thing. So let's try that. See, I'm using reverse engineering here. So let's see if that works. Coding on the fly. Okay, so shuffled array. I need another Now shuffle array will be a property in here, and it'll start off empty. Okay. Now how do I fill that? I want to fill that. Maybe this is where the mounted lifecycle comes in. So I did mention in class that Vue has this mounted lifecycle. Let me show you what that is. So whenever you say new Vue, it goes through this lifecycle, and you could actually hook onto different events. So before create, created, before mount, mounted. So we're hooking onto this one, which means that whatever's in our mounted section or function, it'll run before it actually does the rest here. So before it actually renders stuff, it'll run our code. So let's try that. So mounted, you can say like that. Okay, so what do we want to do? We want to create an array that contains both correct answer and incorrect. We'll just say correct and incorrect answers. Then we want to shuffle it. Okay, let's try this. Maybe we'll just, now the thing is, we want this shuffling to occur every time we have a new question. So every time the index moves to a new one, we want to call shuffle. So maybe we don't want to put in mounted directly. Maybe we'll do this. We'll call a new method called shuffle. So shuffle. There we go. So that means these comments can go in here. Oops, what did I do? And this comment can go in here. Okay, so within here, what I want to do is I want to create an array that contains both correct and incorrect answers. So what if I said const temp array equals an array, but we're going to spread this and also include this in it. So how do I do that? Well, I already have this current queue, which gives us the current object. So if I just say this.current queue, okay, now I'm working with one object here. And if I want to combine this and this, I can just say, you know, dot correct answer, comma. So this is now let's say that this is the first element in that array. And I want all of these to be the second, third, and fourth element of the array. How do I do that? Spread. Incorrect answers. I think that should work. Oh, hold on. So we've created a temp array. Okay. So theoretically that now contains one array of 4 elements. Now we want to shuffle it. How are you going to shuffle it? Now in class I did mention a library called Lab8. Because it has a method called shuffle. So let's grab the script tag for that, put it into our HTML, paste, there it is, and now we have access to Lab8. So let's say const shuffled array. Actually, we could just refer to our own shuffled array, right? So now that's referring to this. Equals Lab8, and we'll call the shuffle array on our temp array. Let's see if that does that work. Let's see. I'm not sure. Refresh. Okay. Looks good. So I think that's it. It looks good. If I were to change the index, the top question should change, but not. So far, nothing. Okay, yeah, that makes sense, because we still have to account for that whenever the question changes. But that's okay. For the lab, all I have to do is display the first question and the first set of answers, and that's fine. So the next thing we need to do is display this list of levels. So how are you going to do that? First of all, let's remove the hard-coded level we don't need. And since we want to iterate multiple times of this component here, we want to do a v4. Now, in class, I said something like you could use item in items. So what that means is this is some variable name that you can make up, which then you can use in here, for example. Whereas this items refers to whatever's in your data, which is an array. So in your data, you have items, which is an array, but because we already have our array here with all our different levels, which is assigned money, we can just say items is money. Okay, let's see what that does. Should do something, I think. Refresh. Let's see. Perhaps it's because this item is currently this object. So this item is currently this object. What if I said item.amount instead of just item? Ah, there we go. Now that's interesting, because before, when I just had item, I had a different error where it displays all the objects. Oh, that's what I had before. So it's interesting that it didn't do that before. Okay, so what I want to do is I just want to display the level and the amount. So maybe I'll just say level, maybe a dash and a $sign. And if you think about it, it's kind of like the template literals that we've been using, except that you get to use these template literals inside the HTML page instead of the JavaScript page, which is kind of neat. Okay, so let's refresh that. Nice. Okay, so I think we're almost done. The only thing left to do is the async await with the fetch. So the API is found here. API, and you can grab 15 questions, because that's how many levels we have. You can select any category you want, any difficulty, whatever. And here's the URL. Okay, so that means to test it, I'm just going to type in the URL there, paste it, and you should get 15 questions. Great. Okay, so let's fetch it. So that means in our app.js, we don't need this questions stuff anymore. Let's just delete that. Gone. Okay. So that means this really means this, but now that's useless. So maybe we'll just have an empty array for now. And then for this mounted, you can say, we'll create a new function called get trivia questions. And so now we need to create that method here, get trivia questions, which we can use the async await. Now, this again is just a shorthand for this, right? Which means if you're using async await, async would go there. And then you could say something like this, const response equals await, and then fetch, and then inside that, paste your API. And then you can say const data, which will equal to response.json. You still have to parse it. And so now data, we'll have to console log this for a second. I don't know what data is. Let's see what data is. Let's open the console, clear it, let's run it. Hey, where'd it go? Questions not defined. JS 26, line 26. Right, forget that one. Refresh. Promise pending. Was it resolved? Undefined. Oh, right. Shoot, I forgot to wait that as well. There it is. Yes, it got... Okay, so the data gives me an object, and what I really want is this 15 questions. So I need data.results. So data equals that, and so I want our questions. So now this questions is going to equal data.results. I think that's it. Let's try it out. Haha. So I got this question here, refresh, and it should be a different question. All right, great. Yeah, we'll have to take care of these in a second. But for now, why aren't my answers showing? It's because I think it's trying to shuffle before it actually gets the data. I wonder if I said, instead of shuffling there, I wonder if I could say it there. Would that work? Yeah. Wonderful. And that's the end of Lab 8 in 21 minutes. So I think I'll do this from now on for the rest of the lab, just so that you're on track. And yeah, if you have any questions, give me an email, and I'll try to answer it as quickly as possible. All right?